I was on the verge of losing my cool if that arrogant man had uttered another word. We were at an unwanted dinner, which turned out to be a setup orchestrated with candles and wine. Chase Donovan, my wife's supposed colleague, was already seated when I reluctantly arrived. His tight black shirt seemed like it belonged in a fitness advertisement, and his smug smile hinted at his belief of owning the place. Beside him sat my wife Ashley, with her hand in close proximity to his thigh, laughing excessively at his jokes. I had agreed to this dinner, thinking it was a chance to mend our marriage, but I quickly realized it was a sinister plan. Logan beat Chase, Ashley introduced sweetly, signaling for me to join them at the table. I had heard enough about him. The mentor, the confident, the man who seemed to understand her best. As I sat down with a forced smile, my fist tightened beneath the table. Just then Chase leaned in, his eyes fixed on me. In a tense atmosphere akin to a Western standoff that night, he spoke with calm precision, outlining two choices for Logan: to depart quietly or to confront him head-on. Ashley remained composed, meeting his challenge with a smile. As my head swam and my senses heightened, the room seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of my pounding heart. The ultimatum echoed in my mind: to leave peacefully or to engage him directly. Anticipating my submission, he expected a nod and a retreat, abandoning my life as he took up residence with my wife. Gathering my resolve, I met his gaze with a grin and retorted, "Do you prefer your teeth intact or in fragments?" With swift determination, I rose from my seat and swept the table clean with his face, dishes crashing and wine spattering across Ashley's pristine white dress, a symbolic representation of fresh wounds. Chaos erupted as onlookers cried out, and though Chase tried to rise, I swiftly subdued him with a potent blow fueled by years of pent-up frustration, betrayal, and solitude. Amidst the commotion, Ashley implored me to cease, embarrassed by the scene I had initiated after being led into this predicament by her. A restaurant served as the backdrop for the painful end of my relationship. She discarded me like a used napkin in front of her new companion. The scene escalated quickly, with security intervening and escorting me out as blood stained my shirt and glass cut into my knuckles. My ex-partner's new flame Chase remained on the ground, emitting a last breath of arrogant dominance onto the polished marble floor. Standing outside in the chilly air, I watched the door close behind them, no longer consumed by anger, but rather by a profound stillness and a sickening realization. She had brought me to that place to witness my own downfall. It wasn't the beginning of the betrayal. It was the grand finale of her deceitful performance. She had manipulated the narrative until the very end, and I had been an unknowing actor stumbling into my role. Ashley, who once admired me as if I hung the stars, now found humor in my suffering, even as we dined on lobster bisque. However, that night didn't shatter me. It awakened a determination within me. As I returned home, the familiar setting felt strangely altered, as if the energy of the house had been rearranged. Nothing physical had changed, not the furniture nor the decorations, yet something intangible felt out of place. The lingering scent of her perfume in the hallway served as a haunting reminder of what once was. I took the seat, my palms still tingling from striking Chase, my mind whirring like a beehive. The unsettling scene kept replaying in my mind. The arrogance in his voice, her silent compliance, and the disturbing satisfaction on her face. As I was pulled away, a message from her popped up on my phone. It read, "You didn't need to do that. You made a fool of yourself. Are you alright?" "No." "Let's talk." Just a cold accusation. That's when something in me snapped. I rose to my feet, not out of suspicion, but out of the need for concrete evidence. I began my search, starting with a closet. Nothing seemed out of place until I reached the shoe rack. There, I found a pair of unfamiliar red heels, clearly expensive. Ashley hadn't worn heels around me for months. Moving to her vanity, I picked up her unlocked tablet. She believed I trusted her too much. Or that she was wrong. The first photo I saw made my chest cave in. It was her, barely dressed, taking mirror selfies in a hotel room I didn't recognize, date stamped last weekend. She told me she was at her friend Lacey's baby shower in Sacramento. Another swipe. There was Chase in the background, shirtless, brushing his teeth. My breathing turned shallow, my eyes burned. There were videos, messages, some of them voice notes, his deep tone calling her my little secret, her giggling like a schoolgirl. She called him daddy in one. I almost threw the tablet through the wall. They mocked me. She even told him once, he still thinks we're going through a rough patch. Poor baby. Poor baby. That line cut deeper than any punch I'd thrown earlier. Suddenly everything added up. The late work meetings, the girls' nights, the sudden interest in dressing up when she barely wore makeup for me anymore. The coldness, the eye rolls, the sighs when I tried to initiate intimacy. She had checked out months ago. She wasn't mine. Placeholder, a spectral presence within our home. She dutifully kept up the facade of being a resident, seamlessly blending in as if it were her own. The following morning, she strolled in casually, completely unfazed. Her hair was styled neatly, savoring her coffee and engrossed in her phone, as if my presence was of no consequence. I sat at the dining table, my gaze fixed upon her. When she finally met my eyes, she seemed indifferent. "What?" she asked. I remained silent, sliding the tablet over to her, displaying the incriminating messages. Her fingers hesitated on the screen, and after a lingering moment, she turned to me, demanding to know why I had intruded into her privacy. There was no hint of remorse or denial in her response, only an attempt to deflect the blame. Leaning in closer, I reminded her of the deceit, manipulation, and public humiliation I had endured for months. I confronted her about inviting another man into our lives, treating me with disrespect while carrying on behind my back. In return, she simply shrugged, dismissing me as dull and claiming she sought someone who sparked emotions within her. Anger coiled within me at her audacity. "And this is your choice?" Self-absorbed individual more focused on flaunting his muscles than forming coherent sentences. She had a satisfied grin on her face. At least he pays attention. At least he doesn't make me feel like I'm wasting my prime years waiting for someone to change. In that moment, it dawned on me that she never truly loved me the way I loved her. She loved the idea of me, the man who took care of everything, who built a life for us. But once the routine settled in and I grew comfortable, she grew restless. Standing up, I made my way to the bedroom, started packing clothes into a duffel bag. She trailed behind me. "Are you just going to leave like that?" she asked. I zipped up the bag. "You already left?" "Just didn't say it," I replied. Passing her in the hallway, she muttered something under her breath. I halted. "What was that?" I asked. She met my gaze, cold and unapologetic. "You were never enough of a man for me." I didn't say a word, didn't show any reaction. I simply walked out the door with the bag over my shoulder, leaving behind the woman I once cherished in a home filled with deceit. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over yet. That night, I moved into a temporary rental, an empty space with no memories, no hint of betrayal, just quietness. Once, the silence was suffocating. Sleep eluded me as visions of her haunted my every moment. Her face lingered in my mind, from the smirk at the restaurant to the disdainful look she cast my way. The recordings of her voice held a stranger's tone, far removed from the Ashley I once knew. While the old Ashley dreamed of a shared future filled with pets and children, this new version whispered poison into another man's ear. My attempts to reach out were met with ridicule and contempt, as she belittled me and plotted my downfall. The betrayal cut deep, stripping away my sense of self. Ignoring her calls and texts for 3 agonizing days, all she offered were hollow excuses and a cold, calculating approach to our separation. She sought to negotiate our split as though it were a simple business transaction, devoid of emotion or remorse. On the 4th day, why? She showed up at my door. I opened it, and there she stood in that fake innocent outfit. Sweater, jeans, no makeup. Like she was still the girl I once proposed upon that beach in Caramel. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked in, sat down, crossed her legs, cool as ice. "You've had your tantrum. Now we need to figure out what's next." I leaned against the counter. "You're acting like you didn't destroy everything we had." She sighed. "It wasn't working. You were distant. You didn't see me anymore." I laughed bitterly. "I saw you every day. I tried, but you checked out. And instead of speaking up, you found some gym bro with the IQ of a houseplant and gave him what you swore only belonged to me." "Don't be dramatic," she said, eyes rolling. "It wasn't like I planned it." "No, then explain the hotel bookings, the lingerie I never saw, the videos on your phone. Explain why he felt confident enough to tell me to leave my own marriage quietly." Her lips twitched. "You're acting like I committed a crime." "No," I said, stepping closer. "After carrying out an assassination, you not only took the life of the man I was, but also failed to give him a dignified burial." As she stood up, her anger suddenly surfaced. "I needed more from you, Loveness," she exclaimed. "You were just going through the motions. Coming home, watching TV, being the same predictable man I married. Instead of addressing the issues, you sought solace in someone else and made me believe it was my fault." Walking towards the door, she continued, "You always played the victim. Perhaps if you had been more courageous, you would still have a wife." I interjected, "No, I don't still have a wife. I never did." I had a parasite. One that drained me with a smile on its face. As she turned back, her expression darkened. You think you were the only one who suffered. I wasted years pretending to be happy, Loden. I pointed out you didn't pretend, you lied. Then, almost casually, she dropped the bombshell. I've been with Chase for 6 months, and you know what? I feel alive again. And just like that, the truth was out in the open. 6 months of feeling truly alive. Each time she distanced herself from me in bed, I would inquire about her well-being. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place. While I was busy preparing for our anniversary, she was arranging romantic getaways with another man. While I put in extra hours at work, she was calling out another person's name in my car, in my bed, and in my life. I kept my composure. There were no outbursts or tears. I simply nodded and calmly remarked it. Then I added, you probably don't want to hear about my actions yesterday. Her expression turned questioning. What? She inquired. I retrieved a file from the drawer and placed it on the table before her. Inside were bank statements, screenshots, copies of joint account transfers, her concealed credit card, receipts from hotels, and a record of her discussion with Chase about concealing assets. I had enlisted the help of a friend owed a favor, an ex-police officer who didn't inquire about details. Ashley's face turned pale as she asked Loden, "What is this?" I met her gaze steadily. It's evidence. I am initiating divorce proceedings. I will be taking everything, and I will ensure that your secret lover comprehends the consequences of provoking a reserved man and underestimating what he is capable of when pushed too far. Cornered, she extended her hand towards the folder, but I quickly snatched it away. We're finished. Leave, I stated firmly, watching as her lips trembled with fear for the first time, a fleeting moment of vulnerability. However, it was too late for tears, too late for remorse. The man I used to be, the one who naively trusted and longed for love to return, had died at that very table in the restaurant. In his place stood a new person, resolved and unwavering. And I wasn't finished yet. 3 days after I had handed her the folder, Chase unexpectedly appeared at my workplace, exuding a commanding presence with an air of alpha energy. He waited outside the parking garage, resembling a villain from an action movie, leaning casually against his sleek black Dodge Charger, sporting mirrored sunglasses and the same cocky smirk he wore at the restaurant. I sensed he wanted to engage in a man-to-man conversation, perhaps even offer a half-hearted apology. But at the sight of him, a long-dormant anger surged through me, reminiscent of the fights from my high school days. Loden, he called out casually as if we were old acquaintances catching up. I remained silent, continuing to walk past him. You have a moment? He inquired, stepping closer. As I stood on my path, I halted to scrutinize him. He didn't warrant my attention, yet I couldn't dismiss him, not after the harm he had caused. What do you want, Chase? I inquired. With a nonchalant shrug, he replied, Look, man, I didn't intend for things to escalate like that. I thought she would end things with you peacefully. I didn't expect her to involve you in that whole dining affair. Thought. I echoed. You believe you could intrude into my wife's life, her affections, and that I would vanish without a trace. He lifted his hands in defense. I understand you're angry, but let's not ignore the fact that she made the choice as well. Stepping closer, I asserted she did, so did you. So whatever delusion you had about usurping my position, abandon it. You're not the leader, you're really a bold appendage that overstepped. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his smile. You should know she's contemplating moving in with me. Good, I retorted. She'll blend in seamlessly with your inflated sense of self and your workout supplements. His expression flickered. You don't intimidate me, Loden. Leaning in, I whispered, then you're even more foolish than you appear because I should. He tightened his jaw in response to my words. This doesn't have to turn ugly, I reassured him. You crossed the line 6 months ago when you started discussing other options. And I'll say it again calmly but with a hint of danger. Do you want your teeth intact or broken? He subtly flinched, revealing a glimpse of fear beneath his tough exterior, gym-built muscle and bravado. He was more at home in front of mirrors and an audience than in a situation like this. I walked away knowing that the damage I would inflict wouldn't be physical anymore. Back at the rental, I sat down at my laptop and meticulously reviewed everything, the documents, the timeline, the evidence. My lawyer had already commenced drafting up the necessary paperwork, and as we uncovered more details, the facade Ashley had created began to crumble. She had dipped into our joint accounts for secret getaways, purchased gifts for Chase using my money, and attempted to transfer funds under her sister's name. Her actions reeked of recklessness and greed. Yet what shocked me the most was how effortlessly she could deceive. appearing so composed and sincere even as she manipulated everything to her advantage. As I uncovered more messages and printed out receipts, each one felt like another stabbed in the heart from the woman I believed in. That night she called me and I hesitated before answering. Logan, she started, her voice soft and lacking the usual bitterness. What? I replied, still reeling from the betrayal. I didn't expect you to react like this, she said. Like what? I shot back, feeling the weight of her deception. Like a man who was used, betrayed, and left to deal with your mess alone. She tried to explain that she didn't intend to hurt me, but I knew the truth. Yes, you did. You just never thought I would stand up for myself, I responded, anger simmering beneath the surface. The silence on the other end was deafening, broken only by her tentative words. He's not what I thought he was, she admitted. I stayed silent, knowing the real reason behind her confession. Thought he'd protect you from the consequences, I retorted. Another pause followed, filled with unspoken regrets. I made a mistake, she finally admitted. I closed my eyes, shaking my head in disbelief. No, Ashley, forgetting our anniversary is a mistake. Saying something hurtful in an argument is a mistake. What you did was a deliberate act of betrayal, built on a foundation of lies. Bed by bed and week by week, you never imagined I would set fire to it all quicker than you could build it up. When she attempted to speak, I ended the call. I had no use for her apologies, nor did I seek her sympathy. I had permitted her to mold me into someone I was not for far too long. Her actions had made me doubt myself, question my value. But as I stood there, holding the evidence of her betrayal and the remnants of our marriage, a sense of clarity washed over me that I hadn't felt in ages. It was no longer about seeking vengeance. It was about reasserting my identity, my peace, my damn self-respect. She could keep her dim-witted musclehead boyfriend. I had something far more valuable, my freedom, and I intended to make the most of it. The divorce proceedings progressed more swiftly than I had anticipated, likely because Ashley didn't want our private turmoil aired in court. She believed she could pressure me into a hushed settlement, portraying herself as the woeful wife who had simply fallen out of love. However, the instant my attorney presented the financial proof and electronic records on the table, her facade crumbled. A rapid change occurred within Yulin. She refrained from shedding tears or raising her voice. Instead, she approached the situation with the demeanor of a negotiator, striving to salvage her reputation. Our final face-to-face meeting was formal and mediated, with a sense of calm prevailing. Yulin opted for a navy suit and a makeup-free look, aiming to appear poised and professional, in contrast to the persona that had been exposed in a compromising situation during a company retreat. I hardly made eye contact with her. At a certain point, she leaned in and quietly inquired, "Why are you doing this? You're humiliating us both." Keeping my composure, I responded matter-of-factly, pointing out that her discomfort stemmed not from her actions, but from their exposure to others. She leaned back, gaze piercing, and remained silent for the remainder of our discussion. As the session concluded, I left with my self-respect intact and a sense of starting anew. Yun, on the other hand, departed with her reputation tarnished and her secret lover waiting outside in the car, reaching out to her like a lost puppy. Though I anticipated feeling a sense of satisfaction, it did not come. Betrayal does not culminate in a victory lap or reward for surviving someone else's deceit. It simply leaves a sense of the numbness, and after that, a long, slow rebuild. Nights were the hardest. It wasn't the loneliness. It was the echoes, the silence that used to be filled with her laughter. Even if it was fake near the end, the way the sheets didn't smell like her anymore, how I caught myself reaching for my phone to text her something stupid, then remembered she was probably busy doing God knows what, with a guy who thought push-ups were a personality trait. I started going to the gym, not because I wanted to be like him, but because I needed to sweat it out. The poison, the anger, the grief. It had to go somewhere. Funny thing, the more I pushed the reps, the more I remembered who I used to be before her. Not bitter, not broken, just me. One night, a friend invited me out to a bar, said I needed to get back out there. I almost didn't go, but something told me I needed the air. That's where I ran into her. Not Ashley, her sister Rachel. She walked in with a few friends, froze when she saw me at the bar. After a beat, she came over. Open. It was unexpected to run into you, Pierre God. I replied in agreement. She lowered her gaze to her drink before meeting my eyes. I overheard everything she said softly. I apologized, and she reassured me, don't apologize. She didn't betray me. She offered a sad smile and shared. I tried to intervene, but she dismissed me, telling me to mind my own business. I wasn't surprised as Rachel tilted her head. How are you holding up? She asked. I shrugged, responding, "Some days are better than others." She observed me closely as she leaned on the bar. You know, Ashley always craved attention and had to come out on top, even if it meant destroying something beautiful, she said, catching my gaze. I questioned if she had ever truly loved anyone, and Rachel remained silent for a while before answering, only herself. Her words strangely brought me solace. That evening, as I made my way home under the serene night sky, feeling the crisp air around me, it seemed like a cleansing toxicity had finally left my veins. For the first time in months, a genuine smile lit up my face, not because of victory or retribution, but because I had finally discovered the sensation of inner peace. No one, not Ashley, not Chase, not even the shadow of my former self, could diminish that feeling. It wasn't long after that evening at the bar that I received an unexpected message from Chase. It began with a request for a conversation man to man. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same person who once tried to assert dominance over me was now seeking a dialogue on equal footing. Initially, I considered blocking him, but my curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a tranquil coffee shop on the outskirts of town. When he'd arrived, he seemed different, tardy, disheveled, and devoid of his usual arrogance. As we sat face to face, a silence lingered before he uttered, "I think I've made a mistake." I remained silent. "She isn't what I anticipated," he admitted. "Yes, she's stunning, but she's toxic." I reclined in my seat, acknowledging his revelation. "Welcome to the club," I retorted. "She used to talk about you," he continued, trailing off. He gently rubbed his face as he expressed his doubts. "I don't believe she is capable of genuine love," he voiced his concern. "You're right," I confirmed. "She only seeks attention, and once that fades, she is quick to move on." He remained silent, lost in the turmoil he had played a part in creating. I rose from my seat, offering him well wishes. "Good luck, my friend. I mean that sincerely." Confusion crossed his face as he looked up at me. "Aren't you angry anymore?" he asked. I admitted, "but holding on to anger only weighs me down, and I carried enough already." As I exited the cafe, the sunlight washed over my face, bringing a sense of warmth and cleanliness. I felt the weight lift off my shoulders, feeling lighter than I had in months. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I sat barefoot on my porch, savored a glass of bourbon, and embraced the peaceful solitude. No distractions, no falsehoods, just my own company. It's remarkable how betrayal can initially feel like a loss, but as time passes, it becomes a catalyst for transformation. The shedding of old layers, a raw renewal. Since the finalization of the papers, Ashley had reached out once, leaving a voicemail I chose not to listen to. Without hesitation, I deleted it the moment her name appeared on the screen. He didn't find closure, and she didn't have the final say. I reclaimed that power for myself. Now, I've resumed my travels, taking weekend trips, going on hikes, and revisiting old hobbies that I had abandoned while trying to salvage a marriage that was decaying from within. I even reconnected with my brother, with whom I hadn't communicated for over a year because Ashley convinced me he was a negative influence. As it turned out, she just couldn't handle his perceptiveness. Rachel would send me the occasional text, just lighthearted messages to check in or share a joke. I valued her respectful distance. She didn't pry for information or push for healing, she simply let me be. One evening, she sent me a photo from a past Christmas celebration, featuring me, Ashley, and our entire family. Studying that image, I scrutinized the smile on my face and the way I held Ashley's hand. I realized that my emotions were genuine, unlike hers. I've since accepted that I need not grieve over something that was never authentic. The love I thought we had, the partnership I believed in. It was my reality, not hers, and that's acceptable. What I have now, which she'll never experience, is peace and an acknowledgement of my own truth. Ability, a soul that didn't rot when the lies came crashing down. She's probably still out there chasing that feeling, that hype, that next man to worship her, until he sees what's behind the smile. But me, I'm building again, brick by brick, and this time it's real. A few months passed, seasons changed. I didn't count days anymore, just small victories. Waking up without a pit in my stomach, eating without that metallic taste of anxiety, sleeping through the night without nightmares of her voice whispering lies in my ear. Then one morning, I opened my email and saw her name again, Ashley. Subject line, "Please just hear me out." I stared at it for a good 5 minutes before clicking. "Logan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I wouldn't be writing if it wasn't important. I messed up, I see that now. Chase is gone. He left after I found out he'd been cheating. And now I'm just alone. I've had time to think about everything. Us, what I did. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to understand that I was lost. I gazed at the title and remarked, a heavy read for someone with kind eyes. Our conversation lasted for an hour that day, leading to coffee, walks, and then a brief pause to avoid rushing into anything. I opened up about my scars as she offered comfort by stating good scars mean you're healing. Claire never pushed me, never probed. She simply remained a consistent, genuine, and warm presence. Being with her felt effortless. No need for pretense or validation. Claire rarely mentioned Ashley, only inquired once when she noticed my reaction to a text from that name. You don't have to share the story with me, she assured me, but if you ever want to, I'll be here to listen. Eventually, on a quiet rainy Sunday with her hand in mine, I poured out everything to her. It wasn't for sympathy, but for the relief of releasing it into the open air. Claire stayed silent, just listening, and when I finished, she softly said, "That was never about you." That was her broken reflection seeking closure. The line from the mirror that stayed with me goes like this. One night, I found myself driving past the old house. Earlier, it had felt sacred, but now it seemed smaller and lifeless. The lawn was overgrown, the shutters crooked as if giving up on pretense. I didn't stop, just drove by and found myself smiling. Not in triumph, not to prove a point, but simply because I had endured. Ashley once criticized me for being too soft, claiming I couldn't handle chaos without her. Yet here I stood, strong and resilient, bearing scars but unwavering. The storm had come and gone, leaving only clarity in its wake. With clearer vision, deeper trust, and a stronger stride, I now find joy in the simple things. Losing everything brought a strange peace, allowing me to cherish what truly matters. Like mornings still with honest conversations over coffee, and quiet evenings shared with someone whose words are genuine and comforting. Real love, I've learned, that doesn't thrive on chaos, but on gentle presence. As the crisp evening unfolded, it reminded me that true love arrives quietly and stays when others depart. The sky transforms into a velvety expanse, accompanied by the scent of new beginnings. I sat on the balcony of my new, albeit small home, which exuded warmth in all the ways that truly mattered compared to my old house. Inside, Claire was in the kitchen, humming softly and dancing barefoot to a tune only she could hear. Watching her through the glass, a sense of peace settled within me. Not the facade of everything being fine, but a genuine tranquility. It was the kind of peace earned after navigating through difficult times and emerging with your spirit still intact. Thoughts of Ashley occasionally resurfaced, although less frequently now, akin to remembering a distant, surreal dream with faded remnants of pain that no longer stung. She had become a name in a closed chapter, and Chase a mere footnote, lessons that taught me the toxicity of love without respect, the entrapment of loyalty without honesty, and the existence of people who only know how to take without giving back until you lose sight of yourself. Yet, I also discovered that surviving betrayal isn't a hardening experience, but rather a catalyst for self-awareness, strength, sharpness, and a deeper appreciation for tenderness when it resurfaces in your life. As Claire joined me outside, wrapping herself in a blanket and resting her head on my shoulder, she sensed my contemplative mood and asked, "Are you okay?" I affirmed with a nod, reflecting on past experiences. I didn't need to delve into specifics with her. Some things are better understood and then left in the past. Gazing at the horizon, I could sense a new chapter unfolding quietly and authentically. If I could impart wisdom to my former self, who once sat shattered at a restaurant table, I would reassure him, "You won't shatter. She may try to make you feel inadequate, blame you, label you as the issue, but you were the foundation, pulse, the essence." As she walks away believing she's headed for something better, she is merely escaping herself. Let her depart, focus on your healing and growth. And when love will come to you once more in a peaceful, steady manner that feels genuine without any pain. As Claire gently squeezed my hand, I gazed at her and felt a sense of belonging that had been absent for so long, a feeling of home. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, I vocalized my contentment by declaring I'm happy, with sincerity that had been missing before.